Okay, wow. So that Nikola video that I posted last week got a lot more views than I was expecting. So thank you guys for the views. And for those of you, if you're new here because of that video, welcome. But at the same time, the like to dislike ratio on that video was also, how should I put it, very controversial. So if you're one of my new haters, welcome as well. Before I begin today's video though, I just want to make some points of clarification because I feel like some of you may have misunderstood the points that I was trying to make in that Nikola video. So let me just clear that up. So a lot of you had a problem with me comparing the Toyota Mirai to the Tesla to just a regular gasoline car because, as some of you pointed out, Nikola is mainly focused on long-haul shipping trucks. And you argue that I shouldn't use consumer-grade vehicles to make that comparison. And you guys pointed out that the cost per mile of hydrogen when it comes to long-haul shipping will be lower compared to, let's say, the Toyota Mirai, which is a consumer-grade vehicle. And that part is probably true. But at the same time, I would also like to point out, you know what's also cheaper on a cost per mile basis for long-haul? Diesel. Yeah, that's right. Fossil fuels is also cheaper when you use it for long-haul purposes. So my point that I was trying to make with that comparison is that fossil fuels is always going to be cheaper than hydrogen unless we find some way to distill hydrogen in a very efficient and cost-efficient way. Then fossil fuels is always going to be the way to go for now. Hydrogen is always going to be more expensive than fossil fuels. Now, if you look at gasoline compared to electricity fuel, which is just, is that a word? I don't know. Electricity that goes into a battery vehicle. That's what I mean. So if you look at gasoline or diesel compared to the electricity that goes into an electric vehicle, the electricity is often a fraction of the cost of gasoline. Now, of course, I know you're going to say it depends on where you live and it depends on where you get the electricity from, right? If you get the electricity from, let's say, a coal-powered power plant, then it's actually not more environmentally friendly. And I get that. I understand. But for the most part, in most places, you know, here in Ontario, we get a lot of energy from hydro stations and from nuclear power plants. So those are somewhat clean and renewable resources. And if we get electricity from there, it's also a fraction of the cost of gasoline vehicles. Now, the same cannot be said with hydrogen. So again, my gripe with hydrogen is that the cost to performance ratio is just not good enough to really make a difference. So the cost of hydrogen is not really coming down while the cost of batteries is coming down. So if I'm looking at what's the renewable resource that we should switch away from fossil fuel to, I think that battery technology is the way to go and not hydrogen, just because I assume that you don't want to pay double as much as you do to power your car. I would assume that within two choices of paying, let's say, half as much as you do for gas and paying double as you do for gas, you would choose the half, right? You would choose the cheaper option if they're both, clean, renewable energy sources. So that's point number one. And point number two is that I forgot to mention in the actual video that everything Nikola is promising right now is just a dream. So if you go on Nikola's website, all these vehicles, they look great, right? But none of them actually exist. They're concepts right now. And if you look at the statement that Nikola themselves put out, this is not just me saying this, by the way. If you look at the statement that themselves put out, they're not going to generate meaningful revenue until 2021. So if you're buying the stock now, you're literally buying a company that has zero revenue, not profit, revenue. It literally has zero revenue until probably sometime next year, or if they even make it that far. So this is a really high risk speculative play. Now, I don't know what your investment strategy is, but putting your money into a stock that has zero revenue is not an investment strategy. That's just a speculative play. You're just speculating, right? You're buying a dream. That's all you're buying. So if you want to trade this stock or if you want to speculate, then go right ahead. I'm not saying you can't speculate or I'm not saying you can't gamble, but keep in mind that that is actually gambling, right? So when you gamble, sometimes you win big and sometimes you lose. So don't call it investing. So buying Nikola stock is not investing, in my opinion. Now, once again, all of this is just my opinion. So please don't get offended. And a lot of you have already smashed the dislike button, haven't you? Crap. And the last point I want to drive home is that I actually want Nikola to succeed. I know a lot of you think that I'm a Tesla shill and I want all the other electric company vehicles to fail and stuff like that. That is not true. I actually want there to be more electric companies. And if hydrogen is a viable strategy, I want it to succeed. I want to see Nikola succeed so that we can have some actual competition in this field and move away from fossil fuels, because climate change is going to kill us all if we don't move away from fossil fuels. So this this is definitely something that we absolutely need. But I just don't think that hydrogen is the way to do it. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't see it, right? So if you're some sort of stakeholder in the hydrogen industry, please prove me wrong. I would love to change my opinion. But as of right now, I just don't see how it could work. Anyways, today we're not talking about Nikola though. Sorry for the little rant at the beginning, but today we're talking about Spotify. So without further ado, let's jump in on Watch This Stock. So I don't think I have to explain what Spotify is because I'm sure most of you know what it is already. But in case you've been living under a rock and in case you don't know, let me explain, just go through the company profile real quick and explain what Spotify does. So Spotify, in case you don't know, is a music streaming service. So not only do they have music, they have podcasts as well, which have pretty much skyrocketed in popularity throughout the past, few years or so. And right now, Spotify is the biggest player in the music streaming industry at 38% market share, according to Statista. Now, this is about double the market share of the next player, which is Apple Music. Now, this is pretty impressive because obviously the music industry is a huge industry, and Spotify has captured a huge market share in this industry. Now, if we look at a chart of the monthly active users, you can see that the monthly active users has been pretty much going up for Spotify, pretty much in a straight line. Jumping into revenue is pretty much the same story. It's been going up in a straight line as well. Now, moving into net income, we can see that net income is a little bit inconsistent, but that's only because they've been investing a lot of money into building out more platforms and building out all these new technologies. So, Spotify is a really high-tech company, and they really need to spend a lot of money in order to ensure the growth of the company. So that's why net income has been a little bit inconsistent, but as you can see, the revenue has been going up pretty consistently. So that's definitely a good sign. So moving on to the balance sheet, I must say it looks pretty good. So they have pretty much no debt. They have plenty of cash, and these numbers are in euros, by the way. So that's why it seems a bit low, but euros are worth more than US dollars. So it's actually a little bit higher if you can convert them back to US dollars. But yeah, looking at the balance sheet, it looks pretty good. They have plenty of cash. Their total assets are a lot higher than their total liabilities, which is a good sign. And overall, I have no concerns about the balance sheet whatsoever. In this stay-at-home economy, everyone's at home, so people are, if anything, are using the services of Spotify even more than usual. So I think that there's no risk of them having a massive decline in revenue or anything like that, just because it's one of the stocks that actually benefit from more people staying at home. Now, today I actually don't want to spend too much time on the financials of the company because I actually want to talk about this great idea that I saw from Hyperchange. So if you guys don't know Hyperchange, Gali from Hyperchange, he makes some great videos about innovative technologies, namely Tesla, Square, Spotify, and things like that. So I saw one of his videos recently, and I would just like to share my 2 cents on an idea that he gave and give my opinion on it. So in case you haven't seen the Hyperchange video, I'll link to it somewhere or down below or somewhere on this video, and you can click on it and watch the original video that Hyperchange posted. But let me just share my 2 cents and let me just share my video response. I don't know, is video responses still a thing? I've been on YouTube for a long time. I haven't been making videos, but I've been watching YouTube for a long time. So I've been watching YouTube ever since the video response days. I really think that YouTube should bring it back, by the way. It's such a great feature. But anyways, consider this my video response to Hyperchange. So yeah, anyways, in summary of the Hyperchange video, Gali just makes a point that Spotify should let us consumers invest in artists. And what do I think of that idea? Well, quite frankly, I think that idea is absolutely fantastic. And I absolutely love this idea. And I think that this is the future. And this is the way that Spotify should move towards. So hear me out. What does it mean by invest in artists? Well, considering that you can buy shares in a company, you can buy stocks, so you can't really buy shares in an artist, right? So how many times have you been on YouTube or been on Spotify and then you've been listening to this artist for a long time and then all of a sudden they blow up, right? And then you go, oh, I knew that person when they were when they had 1,000 subscribers or when their video had 1,000 views, and now they have like several million views, right? So if there's some way for us consumers to profit from the success of the artist and also invest in artists and give them the capital that they need, right? So right now, the major crux of the industry is that if you're an artist, you have to sign this deal with a big record label, and the big record label will put out all these stipulations, and then they get the majority of the money if you make it big, right? And then I know there's a lot of controversy with artists recently about these big record labels coming in and taking a lot of their money. So if you look at someone like, I don't know, Chance the Rapper, for example, he's the one that's famously rejected all these big record labels, and he kind of just did his own thing on his own. Now, if Spotify introduces a platform where it allows us to sort of, just almost buy shares in a person, in an artist, then we can maybe produce more Chance the Rappers, right? We can have a lot more people that get the capital that they need in order to build their music industry just from regular people like us, instead of asking for money from these big record label companies that come with all these contracts and come with all these stipulations and take a majority of the cut of their profits. Now, Spotify already has a feature called Tip Jar. So Tip Jar is what it sounds like, right? You can tip the artist, but that's not really a long-term solution, in my opinion, because you don't really get anything as a consumer. When you tip somebody, you don't really get anything back, right? You're just kind of donating money to the artist, and that's great and all, but you're not really investing in the artist, right? Because you don't get any sort of returns. Is there a way for Spotify to sort of just build a platform for us consumers to be able to maybe capitalize on some of the returns? And I know personally, if they did that, then I would be a lot more willing to spend money on Spotify and just give money to artists that I think are doing a great job, because maybe they can give me a lot more returns down the future, down the line. So give me an incentive as a consumer to help fund the artists that I support. Of course, this will have to depend on how well Spotify is able to implement this, but I think it could work, right? It'd just be like a stock exchange. You can buy stock in a person, and people on Robinhood, I'm not sure if you guys subscribe to Wall Street Bets on Reddit, but people on Wall Street Bets love to buy options, right? Maybe this is stretching it a little bit too far, but what if you can buy call options on an artist, right? You can buy an option on a share of an artist and then just use Spotify as sort of like a brokerage app. I don't know, this sounds really stupid. I know this sounds really dumb, but that's potentially an idea, right? Like, why can't it work? This sounds like one of those April Fool's jokes that actually would be great if it became reality. So have you guys ever saw like an April Fool's video where you think, hey, this is great if this was an actual real thing? Well, then I feel like this is one of those things, right? Where it sounds really dumb. It's like, oh, buy shares in like people, or buy shares in artists, and buy options on artists. But this sounds like an April Fool's joke, but literally, I think it could work. So imagine the benefits not only to you as a consumer, but to the artists of having this platform. It completely democratizes the music industry. So we can just skip all these big corporations and have us consumers directly fund the artist. And Spotify is the perfect platform for us to do this because they already have, as I said, 38% market share, and they're also expanding big into podcasts as well. So I'm not just talking about music artists, this could be podcasts as well, right? So if there's a favorite podcast that you like that not too many people listen to at the moment, and you think that they're going to blow up and become, let's say, the next Joe Rogan, then, you can invest in them. So yeah, I think all in all, this is a crazy good idea. And I think that this is where Spotify should go in the future. And this is definitely a stock that you want to watch very closely. Now, the stock has absolutely skyrocketed since the March lows, and I'm kicking myself for not buying the stock back when it was down in March. And at this point, I'm not really rushing out to buy stocks, right? I'm sure a lot of the frequent viewers of this channel would note that I'm just sort of waiting to see what would happen because there's a lot of uncertainty in the stock market right now, and I'm just really apprehensive about deploying more assets into the stock market just because I feel like there might be a correction or at least a small crash coming soon. So I think that I don't really want to put too much money in the stock market, which is why I haven't bought Spotify stock. But if the stock corrects a lot, then I would definitely be interested in picking up some shares. But yeah, anyways, this is just an idea, so we'll actually have to see if Spotify actually does this. But if they actually do this, I'd definitely be interested in picking up some shares, even if the stock price has not crashed dramatically. So anyways, those are my 2 cents. And that's my video response to the hyperchange video. If you're interested, please watch that video as well. Links down somewhere below in the description or somewhere. I'll put a card up somewhere if you haven't seen that video already. So anyways, I'll leave the video here. If you like the video, be sure to give a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you like the series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll leave the links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.